Hey, deserving listeners, interviews with the cast members, season 3, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
I mean, no, but there must have been a part of you that, like, because, well, I mean, I know you had said that you wanted to reject him first, but then was the one who was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go on with Zay."
Yeah.
Because he had done that and then seen you and then
hmm
wanted you, a part of you must have been like, "Yeah, that's right,
You know,
bitch. That's how we do."
yeah, it's always nice to get a compliment. Don't get me wrong. But I felt very awkward because Matt's in the pool, Zenob's in the pool. So
Yeah, it just occurred to me that another narrative that she could put forth that might even, so who knows what's really happening, but let's say, for the sake of argument, thought experiment, that for Colleen, when she watches it and she remembers, she's like, yeah, Cole was pretty high on the list, and then Brennan, and then Matt was lower as well. And how do I be a good partner to Matt? How do I avoid the bullying that I'm receiving, which is ridiculous that people would bully her, saying that I would marry anyone? How do I combat all these issues? Well, one, if that's true in terms of the way I'm framing it, which we don't know, and she's refuting in this moment, and I don't have any reason to disbelieve her, but if this is true, then one thing she could say is, she could say, well, I was in the pods and I met a lot of guys. There were 4 guys that I felt like were at the top of my list. And yeah, Cole was number 1 because he's a charming guy in the pods. He just seemed like a really a potential match for me. And so I really kind of locked in on him. He rejected me. And yeah, I was sad because at that time I thought he might be the one. Of course, I didn't know because I'm in the pods. Then I went down the list and I went to Brennan, and then he rejected me, and I was pretty sad. Matt was definitely on the list, by the way, so I got down to Matt and another guy. And then when Matt started to be more receptive, it felt good to be appreciated and that someone would accept me. And then as time went on in the pods from there, I started to feel like actually maybe Matt is the one for, Matt should have been number 1 for me. Why did I put Matt at number 3 or 4? And then when we actually met in person and we got married or we got engaged, and then I met Brennan and Cole and this other guy on my list, as time has gone on, I've realized, of course, I should have been with Matt the whole time. In the pods, Cole was high on my list. But in reality, upon meeting him, I'm like, there's no way that Cole and I would have been good for each other. And now that I've been with Matt the whole time, I'm so glad that Cole rejected me. I'm so glad that Brennan rejected me because I never would have been with Matt. And I'm so glad I'm with Matt because Matt and I are perfect for each other. It's just like the universe wanted us to be together. And it's hard to know when you're in the pods. You're just going off of very little information and, all this stuff, you're kind of wrapped up in the moment. And so, yeah, at the time, Cole was top of the list, but I'm so glad that I'm with Matt. Okay, so if she said something like that to me anyway, would be more believable and it would be more in line with what we saw. But she's saying something else. I don't know. What do you think?
I was actually more focused on why are you doing this right now when our respective fiancés are literally right here?
Right there.
So it was more, I just wanted to get, I say it in the, Matt asked me the question on the boat. He's like, what would you do if a guy came up to you? And I said, oh, I would actually have an excuse. I felt like I couldn't do that in the pool. I couldn't be like, sorry, I have someone, because Matt's already in the pool. Matt, he sees Matt. I can't just run away. We're in this situation where we have to talk to each other.
Okay. I must be misunderstanding. So she's saying that when she's talking to Matt later on the boat, and he's like, what would you do if a guy came up to you and hit on you? And she tells Matt at the time, well, I would say I'm with someone because I am. And Matt's like, yeah, good. That's what I would do too. I remember they were having that conversation. And then she's saying in the pool, I couldn't do that. I couldn't tell Cole I'm with someone because Matt is in the pool and Cole can see. Let's rewind this.
Right there.
So it was more, I just wanted to get, I say it in the, Matt asked me the question on the boat. He's like, what would you do if a guy came up to you? And I said, oh, I would actually have an excuse. Like, I felt like I couldn't do that in the pool. I couldn't be like, sorry, I have someone, because Matt's already in the pool. Like, Matt, he sees Matt. I can't just run away. You know, we're in this situation where we have to talk to each other.
Oh, okay. What I think she's saying is, well, one, we're on a reality TV show, so I can't just run away from these conversations because contractually, I mean, she's not saying that, but I kind of saying that, I guess. And also, I can't just make an excuse because Matt's right here. So he's right there. I can't be like, I have a boyfriend, and run to him because it wouldn't seem right. Whereas, you know, if I was alone and Matt wasn't around, then it would. I think that's what she's saying, which I guess I kind of understand. I don't know. It just a lot of things she's saying. I don't have any reason to doubt it, but it just sounds like if she said something else that would land better with me, which of course has no bearing on anything. Colleen doesn't need to say things that land better with me, but I think it would land better with me if she said something like, I was wrapped up in the moment. I didn't know what to do. I was being filmed, and the producers wanted us to have this conversation. And so he was saying all these things to me, and I just didn't know what else to say. It was kind of surprising to me. I didn't think he would say those things. And everything was so new. It was like literally the first day, the first full day being engaged. And so I was just trying to be nice. And yeah, at the time, Cole was attractive. Not that Matt wasn't, but, you know, I was trying to be nice and saying, yeah, you're attractive too, or whatever. And looking back, I just wish I would have had a boundary about it better. But, you know, I was really in a whirlwind of emotions, and I just didn't want to upset anyone. If she said something like that, I'd be like, okay. But the way she's saying it, but, you know, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter. I don't want anyone to think that she's a bad person or that she's lying, because it doesn't matter to us. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just reacting.
So I don't know. I mean, it's always nice to get a compliment,
But if I were to use this as a jumping off point, there are a couple factors that would play into behavior like this. One of which is sophistication regarding how to check in with yourself and talk about things. And I would experience this frequently with clients. We call this insight, generally speaking, someone that has low insight or something like that, but it's more complicated than that. It also has something to do with intelligence. There's an ability, there's an aptitude where people, because whenever you're talking about something that happened a year and a half ago, and there's a lot of different factors at play, you have to incorporate a lot of different factors into what comes out of your mouth. And the more sophisticated and the more insight you have and the more practice you have around this, the better you are at saying something that coheres better. And because, you know, she might be keeping an eye on Matt's feelings and her own narrative, but she can't hold on to other considerations like, is this believable, or does it match up with what people saw in the show or whatever. So that's one factor, but, you know, who knows about that. The other factor, which is what I was saying earlier, which is a connection with yourself and also a history of abuse. She's claimed she has no traumas, okay? And if that's true, and because I don't have any reason to disbelieve that, you can go through emotional abuse, meaning that you have a parent that's very intimidating and very emotionally or verbally scary. And so you learn early in life that you need to say whatever you need to say to please the person to avoid being abused. And you never are given enough time or space to really develop a firm handle on what really happened, because you're always just trying to avoid being hurt, you know? So there's no indication of that, but, you know, we use this jumping off point. And another factor is some people they have a really hard time locking in on what their experience is and their story and their narrative and their emotional state because of various different factors that play into self-awareness. there's various different levels of self-awareness, I guess, is the most general way I could put it. Some people have a lot of self-awareness, and some people have very low self-awareness. And you could call that having to do with depth in terms of using the term that Cole and Colleen were using. And the more self-aware you are, the better able you are to communicate about what was happening for you. Whereas if you don't have that insight, you don't have that self-awareness, and people are asking you all these questions, you might just kind of throw stuff out there hoping that it lands with people because you don't really know what else to say. I don't know, but is it landing with y'all though? Because I don't think anyone emailed me about this, because sometimes I'll get kind of a precursor to what I'm about to see. Like people were saying, you got to watch Cole when he's on that one podcast because he talks about therapy. So I get some indication. I don't remember anyone saying, you got to watch the Colleen interview because the things she says, they don't exactly match with what we saw on the show. But am I alone on this?
Said, oh, I would actually have an excuse. Like I felt like I couldn't do that in the pool. I couldn't be like, sorry, I have someone, because Matt's already in the pool. Like Matt, he sees Matt. I can't just run away. We're in this situation where we have to talk to each other.
I will say it reminds me of many clients that I haven't had recently, but have had in my career. It's frustrating for me to have clients that exhibit what I'm talking about. I don't know if that's what's happening with Colleen, but where I'm talking with a client and I have a hard time getting a grasp on what they're telling me and what their experience is. It seems elusive and foggy and doesn't have a lot of foundational elements to it. And I'm hearing a lot of words and I'm hearing a lot of disclosures and they want to be in therapy, but I feel like I'm floating and I don't know where I'm at, and I start to question if I'm a good therapist or I'm biased, or as a therapist, because you start asking more questions like, well, what was it like for you and what was going on? And you hear answers to the questions, but they don't hold together. And so now it could just be that I'm just not understanding as a therapist, which certainly would happen. But sometimes I would find over time that the individual has low self-awareness, low insight, but also will talk a lot as if they do. Because some people with low self-awareness, low insight will say, I don't know. They'll just be like, I don't know. You're the doctor, you tell me, these kinds of things. So there, it's clear the person isn't really giving me anything. But if I'm getting a lot of data, it has the appearance of self-awareness, right? The appearance of self-reflection. But people don't necessarily have the ability to self-reflect and the ability to be aware of themselves, even though they're talking as if they are. Does that make sense? But Colleen isn't really reminding me so much of that, but when I talk about the things I've been talking about, it reminds me of that. What would typically happen with that? Well, if I was to lump them all together, which is impossible, I would say that a lot of the time, the individual did grow up in an environment where they were pressured to come up with answers, but they were also pressured not to be themselves. So they weren't allowed to be themselves, but they were pressured to provide an answer. A parent who was intimidating and didn't really care about how the kid felt, but would pressure the kid to say something. And so the person has this knee-jerk reaction just to spout. They just say anything, because if you say something, you'll avoid getting in trouble. But they are never given a chance to really cultivate who they are and how they feel and what they are. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Let's adjourn there. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.